It's the Atari 7800 ProSystem. Now this console is Atari's successor to the Atari 5200, which was a complete fail. But this console was not a complete fail. I mean, it was a fail, but not a complete fail. So, as you can see, it's designed after the Atari 2600 Junior and the Atari 5200 for that matter. It has the same silver bar across the top. It's got, as you can see, a pause or a power button, pause button, a select and start button, or reset button, which I think should have been on the controller because you use these two buttons a lot. The Atari 7800 has a very small library of games, but it may be small, but it definitely is a good library of games. There was only 48 games released for the Atari 7800. Now you have great arcade titles like Mario Bros. For the 7800. You have great standalone titles or like launch titles, Robotron 2084, which is a lot like Berserk from the Atari 2600. You have Chopper Lift, which is a very fun side-scrolling game. You gotta like save those people right there. This one is like the only cartridge that I have that's in color. They didn't start making the Atari 7800 cartridges in color until about like halfway through its lifespan. So then you have other games like Food Fight, which is very fun. It's like you have to eat the ice cream, and then when you get to the ice cream, your mouth just like engulfs the entire thing. It's crazy. And then it also has an instant replay option, which I think is pretty cool, especially for this old of a system. Now you also have games like Extravis, which is just a space shooter. But here is where the Atari 7800 shines. It can play Atari 2600 games like Battlezone. Just put them in the front just like the other cartridges. But it, however, cannot play GameCube games. I wish they would have thought of that. See, it doesn't work. So that's a real bummer because Metroid Prime Echoes is like the best game ever. Okay, back to the Atari 2600. You have games like River Raid, Battlezone, Pole Position. I mean, I can name a billion titles. Cosmic Arc, Frogger. I mean, there's so many I could go through. That was a fail. That's where the Atari 7800 shines, is it can play all these games, and you have the option of either using the Atari 7800 controller, which I think is a pretty decent controller, but most people hate it. I don't get why. It's pretty comfortable. I mean, it fits in your hand, two buttons on either side, joystick, or you can use the Sega Genesis controller, which may be the best controller ever made. But, I mean, it's pretty amazing. It has no shoulder buttons though. I was just pretending there, see? Yeah. Okay. You can use this controller. You can also use the Atari 2600 controller, which I happen to not own, but I'll get one eventually. The Atari 7800 ProSystem ran at a speed of 1.79 megahertz. It has this tiny little petite power cable. I mean, look at this thing. It's like smaller than, I don't know. It's smaller than a lot of things. I can't think of one at the moment, but it's smaller than a penny. There we go. It plugs in to the back of the system, right there, and then you're ready to play some Atari. You also have to plug it into the wall. It doesn't like run by itself. It's not that advanced, but it is pretty advanced, except for this tiny little power dot. I don't get why they made it this small. I mean, what's the point? How can this power this? This powering that? It's too small. Okay, I'll drop the subject now. Okay, and then the Atari 7800, as I've stated before, can also play 2600 games like Frogger. I recommend getting the Atari 7800 over the Atari 2600. It's a lot newer, a lot more reliable than it, and it's just all around better. You can even play the same games, and it has a unique pause button, select, reset, power. Yeah, those buttons are fun to press. They feel solid. On back of the unit, You don't have much, just some nice rubber feet, whatever this says. Atari, there's the code right there. No expansion port anywhere on it. Didn't have any pointless peripherals like the Sega Genesis did, like the Sega CD, the Sega 32X. You got these switches right here to switch if you want this one to be the first player or this one to be the first player. Yep, it's an all-around very solid feeling system. You feel like you get your money's worth. It's very heavy, a lot like the NES, where it's only $140 compared to the NES, which was a starting price of $200. It's definitely not as powerful as the NES, but it's a very good competitor.